for joining today. We're here for the Inside College Sports and, jobs behind the scenes. And so I know all of you had such an incredible background and really want to hear a lot about what you do behind the scenes, how you got started in the industry. And I guess I should start by just introducing myself. I'm Tiffany Aidoo. I am a former collegiate athlete. I played 4 years at Tulane University, and I'm currently in sports philanthropy and ESPN Plus analyst. So with that being said, let's do a quick, brief introduction, and then we'll launch into questions. So we're going to pivot the other way, and we're going to start with Nate, if you don't mind introducing yourself.
Yeah, Nate Summers. I work at Tulane University, do director of basketball operations. I'm going on my third year here with Coach Hunter. I'm originally from Indiana, and I worked at Georgia State in Atlanta for 8 years, and really excited to be here and talk to y'all.
Awesome. I am Alvianne Brule. I am an NFL sports agent. I represent both coaches and professional athletes. I also am a 3-time author, and we just launched our wireless tech business.
I am Chandra Dorsey, assistant coach here at Tulane University. I'm in my second year. I'm originally from Louisiana. I am, again, excited about being a part of this panel today and looking forward to conversing again with all you guys.
And I'm Christopher Rickert. I'm a former University of Iowa men's basketball player, and since graduation for the last 8 years, I've been working at Wilson Sporting Goods in the product development and commercial program for team sports with a specific focus on basketball. So this is our most exciting time of the year, seeing our basketball there on the court. So we love the support of coaches playing within the postseason, and it's going to be a great weekend here.
I absolutely love y'all's energy. And so I'm going to go ahead and dish out the first question. And my first question for y'all is, how did you find your career in sports? And go ahead, y'all are like eyeing each other right now. So how did you find your career in sports? How did you get involved in sports?
I mean, for me, like I said, I was from Indiana, and basketball is, the prime state for basketball in Indiana. So I just grew up with a love of that, and I knew with my athletic ability I was not going to make it very far in basketball. So I had to pivot, and I wanted to stay in basketball. So I thought, get into the coaching side of it. And the longer I've been in it, I really enjoy the operations side of it. And so I think just being in basketball, I mean, it's just taken me, it's gotten me into my whole career. And it's crazy, just being here at the Final Four, you see all your friends, and it's crazy how basketball connects you in life. And the way doors open, and it's an awesome thing. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Basketball, place that you grew up and came from. I'm going to kick it over to you because I know you talked about how you played at the University of Iowa and you really wanted to go to that school and you ended up there and now you're working for Wilson. So tell me a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, I mean, it was a dream come true, honestly. Growing up in a small town in Iowa, your dream is to go to University of Iowa and ultimately put on that jersey someday. And my senior year of playing basketball, I kind of thought my journey was over, but then got the opportunity to go to Iowa and eventually make it onto the team there. And so walking in and seeing the Hawkeye jersey with Rickert on the back was a pretty surreal moment, and that really gave me the opportunities, life beyond basketball that we're talking about today, because just setting yourself up with an athletic career in college really puts you in a good path for life after college. So it was quite the journey. My parents were a little shocked at first when I told them, I made it, I can do this. And it was a great, just overall experience there.
I love it. And then for you two, I know y'all both have very dynamic backgrounds. Alvianne, you've done a lot. You're an author, you also are a mentor, and you're a sports agent, and then you're a coach and you played in the SEC. And so I'm going to actually ask you, Alvianne, a little bit about your background. And I know that Christopher just mentioned a lot about coming from basketball experience, but not to bring his experience to yours. I'm curious to hear more about your experience because it's very unique.
Oddly enough, I actually started a nonprofit about 15 years ago, and I was actually looking for a professional athlete to be the face of this program I wanted to launch. So I ended up meeting this young man, and at the time he was a publicist for a professional player with the New Orleans Saints. We started working together, and he was like, "You're impressive. Like, can you come work with me?" I'm like, "How? I'm not an agent." He was like, "You don't have to be an agent to work with players." I'm like, "Really?" And so he's like, "Yes." I was like, "Okay." And so we started working together. I started doing an internship, and then kind of the rest was history in terms of working on the professional side. And then somehow one of my buddies agents actually call me and say, hey, I have this kid, you know, he needs some mentorship. You know, one of my clients want to give him money, but he wants him to earn it. Can he come to your agency and work, you know, work for it? I was like, absolutely. Had no clue this young man was an actual athlete, right? And so, because he was a little puny little thing. And so after the summer program was over, he was like, you coming to my games, right? You know I'm a big time player. I'm like, you play football? No way, right? He was like, yeah, I'm big time and all this. I was like, okay. Went to the games, and he had over 30 offers all over the country. However, he ended up coming a little bit shy on eligibility. And so that made me learn what eligibility was, what that looked like, because I'm like, you're going to go to school. And so that's kind of where my books came from, because it's all about, you know, Dear Football Moms, teaching people about eligibility and recruiting and what that looks like. And so that's pretty much how I got started. And then it's kind of like from my mentoring, I moved from high school to college to the NFL, and now it's like one of my clients was like, you're going to have to become an agent. I'm like, no, because at the time it was like that wasn't a thing for women, you know. And so I was like, have you lost your mind? And so he was like, no, seriously, you know. So he kind of planted that seed. 2 years later, I ended up becoming an NFL certified agent, and here I am.
Love it. I absolutely love it. And then Chandra, or Dorsey, I should say Dorsey, because that's how everybody refers to you, so let me not get that wrong. But Dorsey, tell me a little bit about your experience in getting into this space.
Well, as you guys know, I mentioned I did play college basketball, but obviously it started off in high school. I was a pretty talented player, and I had great mentors, great coaches to kind of help me along the way that told me, hey, you may be able to do this at the collegiate level. And I'm 5 foot nothing, right? And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I could, but just through the hard work and dedication I put in through high school, I was able to earn a scholarship to Ole Miss. So I played my 4 years there, connected with some amazing people during my time there. And for me, being a point guard, being somebody that my coaches really relied on, I feel like I'm a person that still works extremely hard and was really dedicated to my craft. So I was really fortunate that my senior year, we did have an opportunity to go to postseason play in the WNIT. My position coach got a head coaching opportunity back home in Louisiana, so I was the first person she asked, hey, do you think you want to, you know, get into coaching? And I was like, no, I don't think so. Even though I really enjoyed working our camps during the summer, always going back home and working camps and volunteering and doing things, I thought maybe I'm not sure if I want to coach. She said, you would be a great coach. You're a point guard. You have a great way of connecting people. Your teammates really respect you because of your hard work. So I took those things that she told me, and I said, you know what, Coach, absolutely. I'll go back home with you and help you rebuild this program at McNeese State. So that's kind of how I got into college coaching, and I'm still 21 years later still doing it. So I'm very fortunate for Coach Sinsley, who's my mentor, who kind of gave me that first opportunity. Passionate about it, fell in love with it, and I know this is exactly what God would have me do. I love what I do.
I love hearing the stories in the background, because each of you have such a dynamic background. They're all very different. You're all doing very different things behind the college scenes. And so I'm just really interested in understanding what has been so unique about your experience of working behind the scenes when it comes to college. Because you're a director of operations, you're an agent and mentoring athletes, a coach, and then you're providing all the equipment and the amazing things. And I don't want to speak for you, but I think that y'all do such an incredible work to make the system move, right? So what are some what's unique about your experience behind the scenes when you think about working in the college?
Yeah, I can kind of start that off. I think maybe the unique or one of the coolest things is behind the scenes is when you're developing a product, you know, as a former player, and there's a couple players in our office, you just can go to the gym for a day and just shoot around all the new samples. So like which grip, which embossment, you go around and you just play. And I think, you know, leaving college, I knew I wasn't gonna be a coach, I was not gonna be a physical therapist. Like, how do you stay within sports? And really I got into this idea of working for a manufacturing company. I really wanted to create product, and like, how can you create something that makes the game better for players, and just being able to be part of that journey where you see something that takes 3-4 years to create and then ultimately see it on court, making a player better. I think that's been the most exciting and unique part of the job, because you see the process all the way through, and it's a fun day in the office where you just can be on a basketball court, shooting hoops, trying out new product, and, you know, seeing which way you can go with it. So that's one thing that I love about the job and just cherish about being in the sport, is that each day you kind of feel like you're back in high school or college and at practice sometimes.
For me is I get a chance to really impact the lives of young people. I can mentor them. Obviously, we spend a lot of time on the basketball court. We spend a ton of time off the court. So I get a chance to really get to know them and allow them to get to know me as well. Get a chance to figure out, what makes them tick, their interests outside of basketball, which I think is extremely important this day and age for sure, but it's always been something that's been important to me. I want to be able to connect to my players. I want to be able to spend additional time with them so they get to know again who I am and what I can do to help them achieve their goals. So just behind the scenes, hanging out with my players, getting to know them, getting to know their families, so I can do everything that I can possibly to help them achieve their goals while they're here at this university, and obviously once they graduate too, being a part of their lives even after basketball.
She said that because I feel the same way, right? Like, as an agent, we really act more. I always tell people we're kind of like a high-end social worker, to be honest with you, because you really have to help them in every facet of their lives. And so the beauty of it is I get to help change the trajectory, in some cases, of young men and women, and, help them find, as she said, your purpose outside of the sport. What does that really look like? Let's have these deep conversations that are very, very important, and that what gives me the most joy is getting them to understand that you're so much more than an athlete. There's so much more for you to do. What does that look like? And helping them actually, derive to that, or get to that, I should say. It's just a beautiful feeling. And on top of that, a part of dealing with student athletes, 70% of student athletes that play NCAA sports come from a single parent household. And so the biggest thing for me also is just educating that parent, of that household, of what this look like, how that works, so that they can, not make the same mistakes that I've seen over and over and over and over again. And so that's the beauty for me, is just being able to make that impact both in the house and, with the young men and women off of the field.
Both said. I mean, the biggest thing for me is our student athletes. We joke about it all the time, but when our players come into the office and they see the coaches, they get to talk about basketball. When they come in to see me, it's about life, or it's about academics, or it's about paying your rent, or so I get to teach them about other aspects of life, and get to guide them and teach them how to handle a landlord, or how to pay something, and making sure they're in class on time. And it's just it's a whole different deal, but I love being around our players, and they keep me young and keep me hip a little bit, and teach me things that I probably wouldn't know if I wasn't around them every day, right? That's why I got into it, and I think that's why I love it. It's just I love being around our players, and the bonus is just being around basketball all the time. So.
It's very interesting, because I think all of us all the time are constantly learning and teaching, it never stops. And I'm really interested to hear from all of you is what is a piece of advice that you would give a student athlete, but also what is something that you've learned from a student athlete that has really stuck with you? And so you can take some time to think about it, but it's something that I think about, because I think it's a two-way street in the spaces that you're in. You can't create that connection that you're talking about with the athletes unless you're able to learn from them as well. And so I'm interested to hear from all of you, what does that look like in your time?
The biggest lesson that I learned is that they're humans. Sometimes I think that athletes are treated as objects, and we don't realize that they have feelings too. And so that was my biggest thing, is learning that it's okay to cry, it's okay to be able to lift or run through somebody that's 350 pounds or whatever, 100, 200 pounds, and still feel, and so that was the biggest thing, is just understanding. And I always tell people now, even fans, they're humans first, and that's the biggest lesson. And the biggest thing that I try to teach them is that there is life outside of that sport, because so many young men and women kind of look at it as basketball or nothing, sports are nothing, and it's so much more to life. And this sports breeds so much. We're talking about a young man over here, right, that played ball, and now look what he's doing, right? We have a young woman here as well, and she played ball, and now, she's able to coach and pour back. My best friend is a doctor. She played, ball, but now she's a chiropractor. So being able to see that there's so many areas, in this sports, bubble that you're able to contribute, let's find that if you want to stay in this sports realm.
I would say my biggest advice to athletes, especially ones that want to get in the profession, is that you're always on the interview. You're always on the interview. How you practice, how you communicate with your teammates, how you communicate with your coaches, how you interact with administration. All those things matter in the end if you really want to get in this profession, because those are the people, you may not like it or not, but those are the people that are really the ones that are going to be called upon to see if you are a good worker. The ones that are going to be called upon to see what your attitude like when things aren't always going perfect for you. So I think, try to be your best self all the time, even though it's extremely difficult to do, very difficult to do. And I even struggle with it even now. But try to be your best self. Try to be as selfless as you possibly can. Try to give and do more than what's required of you. I know that's been the thing for me in terms of how I've been able to be in this profession and have success in this profession, because of my work ethic, because of my humbleness, because of my ability to be a servant at all times. So you're always on interview, so be your best self if you possibly can. And then the thing that I probably learned from them is that, be resilient. They are so resilient. Things may affect them, but the next few minutes, they're kind of over it. So get over yourself, get over things pretty easily. Don't hold things against people. I think young people nowadays do a great job of really forgiving people. So that's something I definitely learned from them. Like, don't hold grudges against people that may have wronged you.
And kind of along with some of that, I think the advice that I would give, and I think something that really helped me along the way, was trying to find a way to get involved at the university beyond athletics. When I was at Iowa, I joined a co-ed business fraternity, and I joined a group called the Marketing Institute through the business school. So beyond athletics, you were learning how to build resumes and interviews and doing different case study projects for local companies. But having that kind of athlete mark on your resume is a huge bullet point that gets you in the door at a lot of places once you leave school. But you need to round it out with having those other accolades that, get you ready for the professional life, and knowing that I was not going in the route of like an athlete or coach and more into the, business corporate side of things. You really had to round that out. So I think just being able to make them realize that beyond these years at college, what's your next steps? And if it is towards a more business route of it, what other steps can you take along the way to really get you there and get you well-rounded? Because that'll ultimately, get you to the final position.
Yeah, I think like you said, at some point that ball is going to stop dribbling. So what are your plans going to be after that's over with? And I think sometimes that the academic people or some of those people get that stigma that they're out to get you, or they just want you to do certain things, but they're really looking out for what's best for you. They're only doing their job to help you. And so I think that's just they have to understand that, and they have to build those relationships like you said, because that's going to help them later on in life, and you never know where those avenues are going to take you. I think one thing that they've taught me is just patience. I think sometimes I need something done right then and there, and they they're on their own time sometimes, and so that teaches me hey, let's just tone it down a little bit. So yeah.
So I know we're running down on time, and I don't want to end the conversation abruptly. So the final question I'll ask is, what is something that you wish you had? I know both of you, and all of you actually, the theme was maximize the relationships around you, ensure that you see the humanity in the student athletes, and just support them the best way that you can. And so if there's any specific type of advice or things that you wish you had as a student athlete, obviously it's different now. There's a lot of access to resources through social media and different platforms. But what would you suggest to a student athlete that is listening to this right now, or what would you suggest to anyone who's interested in getting behind the scenes and behind the game at this point in their life?
Yeah, I think I would have paid attention a little more. I would have worked a little harder, I think. I think in college too, as a student athlete, you get into that college mode and you maybe skip classes, or you maybe, cut corners a little bit. And I think if you know that now, there's a lot of things I probably would have done a little different and worked a little harder, and maybe not burnt some of those bridges. When you're young and you just don't know any better, and you don't think 10 years down the road, where's that person going to be at and how can they help me? So
I would just add internships, experience, because for me that was the biggest thing that Mom I did every intern you can possibly think of just to figure out what it was that I loved and what I liked. So if you haven't figured it out, that's okay. just continue to do internships to just find out what you like.
As much volunteer work as you
Yeah.
can do and just meet people,
Yeah.
networking.
And it's not okay. It's okay to not get paid, because
Yeah.
my first internship,
Yeah.
but how I started my company, they were like, "You were amazing. You're like 5 years ahead of the game." So, you know, it was one of those things where like I was like, "Oh, I am. Oh, I can do this. Oh, thanks." You know, it also kind of gives you that pat on the back that you need and encouragement you need to kind of step out and do your thing. And like I said, and you learn so much. So sometimes I think this generation gets away. They want everything now. It's okay to do free
When
internships
you're an
and get that
intern,
wisdom.
You get there early and you leave late. People notice that.
Yeah. Mess around and get a job.
Yeah.
Say networking. I think when I was younger, I was so obsessed with my sport and getting better and winning and all those things, which is great, because I think we all need to be obsessed with something if we're going to be competing at a really high level. But I would have spent more time really getting to know my administrators. My FAR, faculty athletic representative. I would have spent more time sitting down and visiting with our AD. He was at every single game congratulating us, high-fiving us even after wins and losses, sitting down and getting to know him and kind of his path as well. And especially my senior woman administrator, that person who was always at every single game, rode way coming into practice, understanding what their role was and how they can eventually help me one day in my career. So really networking with the people you have on campus, and those people can connect you with so many other administrators to help you throughout your career, and even not careers, just even athletics. I mean, outside of athletics as well. Like, they have so many connections that can help guide you throughout your career.
Yeah, and in terms of wish, I mean, I wish I had one more game, one more practice like that. The bond of playing on a team is just irreplaceable. So in terms of just being able to appreciate that, because it will end, and you wish you just had one more. So really fully appreciating the journey you're on when you're on a team. And then like everyone said, it's all about getting the most out of your time, you know, being a student athlete and using that to your full advantage. There's a lot of alumni out there who want to help out student athletes, and it's all about networking. It's all about putting yourself out there, you know, being in an uncomfortable new situation, but showing up on time, showing up with a positive attitude. But ultimately, you know, we nailed it home here today. You want to network and get the fullness out of, you know, the opportunity that you had.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all. It made me think. I have to give a shout out to my coach at Tulane, Lisa Stockton. It's her birthday today, but yes, happy birthday to her. One of the things that she said this season was that confidence happens when good things happen to people. So I just want to encourage all of you in this room and anyone who's listening, or a mentor, coach, whoever, just allow young people who are student athletes to have good things happen to them, and position them in that way so they can build the confidence to be great at whatever it is. So I don't know, I feel bonded by ball today. So do y'all feel that way?
Absolutely.
I love it. Good. I appreciate y'all.